Jesus shines. Jesus is radiant with light, with God's light. Jesus is brilliant and beautiful. And today, as we were celebrating sacraments, the baptism and first communion of children, if you're wondering why there aren't quite so many here today, last week this place was packed for confirmation at 10:30. Earlier, we had moved everybody down to 9 o'clock for solemn communion and baptism. And we have out the Paschal candle. We always bring the Christ candle out for baptism. And it represents that light, the light of Christ. And because that Christ candle is each year dedicated at Easter, it represents to us light that cannot be defeated. The darkness cannot overcome it. They thought that they had ended the light that was in Christ, his enemies. But it could not be overcome. And the light of Christ is with us. And so we love to have candles at the altar to remind us of the light of Christ, the enlightenment, the radiance. We love to have our big Paschal candle to light. And in the story of Jesus on the Mount with several of his disciples, they see this light. They get a little glimpse of that light that will become more evident to them in the resurrection. And a voice comes to them as they're overshadowed by a cloud. It says, "This is my Son, the Beloved. Listen to him." Listen to him. I was asking the children in the First Communion class this morning, who do you listen to? And they said the good and obvious things. They said parents, and they said that Mrs. Robinson, who led them in First Communion, and they said God. And I said, well, are there people you shouldn't listen to? And they said, yeah, there's strangers and some other things like that. People who don't tell the truth. And so, as we thought about listening, who do you listen to? We said we want to listen to Jesus. And he said basically two very powerful things that all Christian churches agree on as sort of his two most important statements to us. And the first is, go make disciples of all nations, baptizing them. So his first statement is, wash. You need to be washed. And invite people to be washed. The second thing that all Christians celebrate in one way or another is, he says, you need to eat and drink. Eat, as he lifted up that bread at that supper. Drink from this cup. You need to eat. So I asked the kids about washing. I said, what do you use when you wash? They said water. That wasn't a hard one. And I said, well, how often do you wash? Do you wash your hands? And said, yeah, once a day. One kid said. His parents were like, ooh. And no, he doesn't just once a day. But we were talking about washing and how. And I said, well, why? They said, because your hands are dirty. Exactly. And it doesn't matter if they don't look dirty, does it? That's when the kids will say, well, my hands, they look clean. So I said, well, why do you wash your hands when they look clean? And they knew, because you can get sick because there's germs, viruses and bacteria. So it's really important to wash so you don't get sick. So baptism is this different kind of washing, not the external washing that we need to stay healthy and well, but it is an inner washing. And how do we wash? Inwardly. Listen to him. Listen to Christ. what baptism signifies on the outside with the washing of water is a person who's sort of placing themselves into the light of Christ and under the light of Christ and receiving His words, letting His words come in. And His words do cleanse. His words do engage things that shouldn't be there, that aren't going to help me, that are going to hurt me. And His words have a very strong helping and cleansing action in my heart. So this ongoing life of washing is really listen to Him. And let that listening deepen and grow and go deeper in us and new places in us. And as our life changes and our circumstances change, to keep listening to Him, letting His light come and, as it were, in some ways disinfect us or inspire us. And then Jesus says, eat and drink. So I asked the children, well, why do we eat and drink? And they had good answers for that. You know, your body needs it to be healthy. You need it to live. So they gave different good answers to that. So what are we doing when we come to communion and when they were coming for their first communion in their case? Listen to Him. In a way, at communion, we're listening, first of all, kind of with our eyes, if that makes sense. We're looking at this bread and this wine, and it's showing us something that we need to take in. It's showing us life that's given. It's showing us what love is, and it's showing us the cost of love and the work of love and how love is poured out. And Jesus is saying, take this in. Listen to me. Take me in. Take this way in. It will be light for you. And it will nurture you and nourish you and give you the strength to live from the inside out. Come, look, listen, receive. And let me be your bread. Let me be your drink and refresh you. So, we're getting ready now to go into the season of Lent. And we're always invited in Lent to look at the ways in which we already listen to Him. And maybe all we simply need to do is get back to some things that we know are good for us that maybe have fallen away. How do we listen to Him? Because we don't want to wash just once a day. How can we wash more and more? How can we let the light of Christ and the words of Christ wash through us regularly, day by day? And how do we welcome and receive Christ, His love, His presence? So as we come into Lent, we want to look at ourselves and our washing disciplines and our eating and receiving disciplines so that we might be more and more filled. Because Jesus wants to make us well. He wants to feed us and nourish us in whatever situation we find ourselves. He wants to give us light, that it might make us clean, that it might inspire us. And of course, He then wants to make us bread for others, light for others. So let us come to this feast today. Come with open hearts. Be washed, be fed. Amen.